it's Renee with Delaney Jane Cards. Welcome back to my channel. Today, my friend over at Rise and Procraftinate, and I are doing a collaboration. We each made 3 backgrounds and sent them to each other, mystery backgrounds. These are the 3 that she sent me. They are beautiful. I make nice cards with 2 of them. With 1 of them, I had to remember that this is just paper. You'll see it all. I left it all in. These are the stamp sets that I used to make my cards. I used an MFT set, a Dreamlands Crafts set, and the Stamp Market set. I did speed up my coloring for this video because as much as I enjoy coloring and I like coloring, I wanted to leave it in. But this video is about making something with things that may not necessarily be your own style. And Amanda and I have very, very different styles. We are very good friends, and I appreciate her like no other. However, she is very into die cutting and like watercoloring and ink blending and things like that, and you'll see those sometimes on my channel, and I do those sometimes, but she's very heavy into that, and my cards are more heavy on the coloring side, so very different. Anyway, like I said, I left the coloring in, and I did put my colors on the bottom of the screen so you can see all of the colors used if a particular color combination is something that you're drawn to, and or that you're new to coloring, or if you're like me and just enjoy coloring, it's all there for you. So this little graduate here, as soon as I seen that red background with the gold marbling on it, I knew I needed to use this stamp. I felt like he's looking through his diploma, and the swirly twirly background would be what he would see through his diploma. So there is no other stamp in my entire stamp collection that I could have put on this card. I get inspired by something and I have to make it happen before I can move on. Like if I get a stamp set and I see it as a watercolor thing, I have to watercolor it before I can try anything else. I just can't get my crafty mojo to work any other way, so I try to just work with it. This video is also one of the very first videos I filmed with my new camera and edited with my and recorded with my new software and all of that stuff. Okay, so this part here where I'm coloring his pants. A while back, I did a collaboration with Amanda, and I made a little Christmas card where the kids were having a Christmas pageant, and I put khaki pants on the boy, so I thought this boy had to wear khaki pants too. He probably finished his Christmas pageant, and now he's at his graduation. It's probably like a kindergarten graduation. He does not look very old, but I thought he would be super fun in khaki pants for that reason. And when I did my coloring for his skin tone, I did use a BV as my shadow. It's something I picked up from Sandy Allnock years ago, and I just absolutely enjoy the tone that I get when I do that. I feel like he doesn't look like he's got a suntan or some weird orange makeup on. He just has a shadow. So that's why I choose to do that. And here is my combination for the hair. He doesn't have, well, his hair isn't drawn in such a way that I could really get super nice flick lines with all of my colors. So I did get some of those in with this darkest shade, and then I didn't I blended him out a little bit, but he still has all flick lines. So that background and that picture or that image are going to go together. So here is the second background, and I did all my coloring for these cards right up front, and then I did put them together later in the video. And here I matched the Copic colors that I wanted to use with the background. This purple combination is going to look like that deeper bluish purple that is in this beautiful background that Amanda made, and it is watercolored, and then she applied some foil with a Zig 2-way glue pen, and she's got some shimmer spray on it. I do turn my flashlight on later on in the video so you can see just the amount of shimmer and beautiful like depth she got in this background. This is just stunning. And she used like P.H. Martin's watercolors, I think. I'll have all of her stuff listed in the description below. She did write it all on the back, and I did take a snapshot with my phone of every single one before I started to work with it. Wanted to make sure that I preserved all that information because she took the time to write it down for me. So I did make this one little girl here with the purple outfit, and I made sure that I got, real good depth with her. She looks round. People are round. Dancers are probably round. And I made her shoes match. That tiny little area probably didn't need all those colors, but the marker has its super tiny tip, so I used it to my advantage. And then I see that matches really nicely. And then I pulled out a BG combination, but I didn't have the BG 78 is dark, but it isn't deep. And what I wanted was a real deep shadow for this outfit. So I did use my blue-green combination here. Started with my BG 15 and then my BG 49 and laid in the shadows. And you can see, you can watch the dimension build. So the BG 78 here adds a little more dimension, but I wanted like an amazing amount of dimension. So this B99, I laid it in not completely over all of the BG 78, but where I wanted it to be the darkest. And then I blended it with the BG 78, back to the BG 49, and then back to the BG 15. And I got this beautifully dimensional little dancer here. Like that, adding that B99 makes a big difference in the amount of dimension that you can get when you're coloring, or in my opinion anyway. So I would encourage you to try adding that in. It worked really well because it was a B, and BG is really blue-green, so and it was a deeper tone, so it did work out nice. So here for the skin tones on these dancers, I do again bring in a BV. It's a different one, and my skin tone combination is a different one too. I have a lot of different options when it comes to skin tones, and these two dancers I did color the same. Oh, and my marker did the bloopy thing. Oh, sometimes these markers, I have a love-hate relationship with them, especially when they do this. I love my Copic markers, but sometimes they can get on my nerves. It's like my kids. I love them, but they can get on my nerves. Who can relate to that? So I will fix that later. It doesn't stay that way. I was just letting it dry. If you try to fix your bloopy marker mistakes when they're still like wet, you aren't going to get it very far. It'll just make a bigger mess. So I colored all the skin tone, and then I even moved on to the hair before I did anything with the bloopy spot. Now the color that's over the image, I was able to hide with my coloring of her hair. I chose to do her hair in dark brown. Figured first of all that would color that skin tone that leaked out everywhere, but I just thought that the purple outfit would look nice with a little dark-haired beauty. So that's what she got. She got dark hair. I didn't need to use a 4-color combination there. I think I just get all excited about my markers, and sometimes I get out too many and then I feel like I need to use them all. For the blend combination, I used a 3-marker blend. This is a really pretty blonde combination. It doesn't lean to orange or red. It's just a true blonde, so I do like it. This adds that like little bit of brassiness that a blonde has in her hair, and it makes that highlight really shine with that YR23. See here, now Colorless Blender comes in, and I push that color back into the colored area. It's not fixed yet, but it's the first layer, so that has to dry. So I moved on to coloring the flowers. These flowers I just did with a single layer of color. I did a BG15, the V06, which I did not use when I colored her. I just wanted that brighter purple that's in the background. And then I did the E41 and E43 for the basket while I was trying to decide what I was going to do for the flowers. Do you color like this? If you don't have like a solid plan, do you skip around, and then as you figure out what colors you want to use for what, do you color that? That's kind of what I find myself doing. Here I used the B93 for the other flowers, and it's just a lighter version of the B99 that I used to deepen that aqua color. More colorless blender just to push that color back just a little more so that when I die cut it, it doesn't have wonky colored edges. And here I used this best glue ever, and I used the fine tip applicator to draw in all the trim on their outfits. And these are the foils that I picked that match the coloring pretty good. A little bit more colorless blender, I guess. And then I think I forgot to do the centers. Yep, forgot to do the centers of the flowers. So I just brought that YR23 in and dotted those. The whole time my glue was drying here, because it does not do very good unless it is dry, and it dries kind of tacky. So you lay this down, the foily side down, the foil color side down, and then the shiny side up, and it will peel that away from the clear backer paper, which is actually like on the front, so that it'll leave the foil on your project. But my little Scrap Perfect rag there that I was using, it's got so much ink on it that it actually left marks on my, oh, you seen Cooper's fingers. It actually left marks on my white paper. So first I tried to clean all the gooey stuff up with my adhesive remover, and then Jen Bina had told me once that if I used a white eraser on the ink smudges that it would come off, and it does. I used it, it does. She was right. She's been doing this a while. So I heat embossed the sentiment from that set onto some black cardstock with my Versamark ink. Did use the Scrap Perfect bag here for my embossing. I do really like this one. First of all, don't have to touch the dry powder. I don't like the way that feels on my fingers. And sometimes I feel like the one that I have that has the bristles on the end, like it scratches my cardstock, and I don't like that either. So this is a perfect one for me. So I heat embossed this. So I had this beautiful shiny white sentiment, and then I did die cut that out with my Simon Says Stamp sentiment labels. So that had a perfect little strip. And then see, you can see here's where I was like, oh yeah, I better take a picture of that. So I did. Took a picture of all that before I adhered it down because, well, now it's lost forever. And then I adhered my little sentiment strip, and I had popped all that in my two little girls up with foam tape and added them to my card. So that is my, well, then I added some sequins, and I just kind of sprinkled them on and then moved them around to where I thought they would look the best. I had some little flower ones that I probably could have used, but I didn't. And then I just adhered them down with my glue and using my little embelly jelly tool, which is kind of cool. Here you can see just how shimmery and sparkly that card really did turn out. So for my little graduate, I decided I was going to die cut him into an oval, and these are super old Spellbinders ovals. They are from when the die cut edge was still in the center of the oval, so it wasn't to one edge or the other. So they're pretty old, but they still do fine. So what I did is I used a Unity stamp set, and this is a rubber stamp. So I put it in my MISTI here to see, where I wanted it. I took my paper back out and then I stamped it on the background. and it let me see if it was straight, and it was straight, so I liked it. So Amanda had done this beautiful red orange background and then used a turnabout stamp, I believe, to do the gold embossing. I wanted to emboss over this, so I used my VersaFine ink and I stamped it a few times, but I used the VersaFine because I wanted to use black embossing powder. And if I don't have the embossing powder in all of the right places, the black ink is at least still there. So it doesn't, you don't skip any parts when you're embossing. But it did a great job, and I think it has to do with that embossing bag. I have not had any trouble embossing since I started using that. No strays, no anything. I've been kind of surprised. So now I have the embossed sentiment on the embossed panel, and the little graduate does fit right on there. So I popped him up with some foam tape and put him right on there. And then I wanted to add a little bit of an embellishment. The bottom of that sentiment has a heart, like an outline heart. So I filled that in with these Nuvo drops. And then I wanted to do like 3 dots in the lower corner. I didn't exactly measure them out very well, so you'll see that this bottom one, when I tap it to make them flat, it kind of like leaks off. It's a handmade card, people. It's all good. So that is that card. Now we are going to talk about how it is all just paper. The third background Amanda sent me is this background here. She used some Arteza gouache, and she had used a die and made like a stencil with it, and it's gorgeous, but it's so not something that I would work with. The other two I was able to look at like pattern paper. This one had this focal image that I really, this one was hard for me. I was on the struggle bus the entire time I made this card. Not only that, but my computer hates this footage. It ate the footage the first time I edited this video, so then I had to pull all the raw footage out again and re-edit it. And there are places in this video where I would have cut out so much more, but it would not let me edit this piece of video footage any more than I already did. So just bear with me. But I want to show this. This is a really cool technique. It's just not something that, well, I guess I would probably approach it a different way in the future. So I wanted to really highlight this beautiful medallion that she made in the middle of this background. So that first stamp is a very solid circle stamp, and it has a sentiment in it. Then I used a Fisker set to add another layer of circles. And then I have this Let's Bokeh set by Lawn Fawn. What I'm trying to do here is trapped ink blending or trapped heat embossing, where you trap the color underneath. I wanted to really, really highlight this. I mean, this gouache, first of all, the technique she did was just beautiful. But the gouaches, is that how you say that she used, some of them are like metallic or shiny, pearlescent. They shimmer. Maybe that's what they're called, shimmers. They're gorgeous. And I didn't want to hide that. But I also had no idea what to do with this background. So I used this Let's Bokeh set, and I stamped it and them other ones around the panel with my Versa Mark ink, and then I clear embossed them with my Ranger Superfine Detail Clear Embossing Powder. And I did this a bunch of times in all different places. Did it with the solid circles, and then the Let's Bokeh set has, this is just like a corner piece. It has some circles and some not solid pieces, and I wanted to really just play up this circle. Now, I'm not telling you that I don't like this card or what I did. What I'm saying is this is not my favorite. I did not throw this away. I finished this card, and I'm really proud of myself for finishing it because this was a hard one for me. I really kind of pride myself in being able to dabble in everything and not have a particular style. Yeah, I think I need to rethink that because I do have a style. It's really not, it's it's not a medallion in the center, and although I can appreciate it and I think that it is stunning, and I probably should have just die cut the edge and added a layered sentiment over top or something really super cool. I wanted to try this, partially inspired by a video that Amanda did do, where she made this beautiful birthday card for her grandpa. She used a turnabout stamp and she trapped the ink color underneath some clear embossing, and then, turned and did more ink blending. And I will have her video linked in the cards. And anyway, so this was her background, inspired by her. So I gave it a shot. So here it is, all heat embossed, and I pulled out my VersaFine Onyx black ink and an ink blender tool. And I was like, well, I'll just blend this color on. Well, it didn't come out as black as I wanted it to be. So I just took the paper, or the ink pad, to the paper and just smushed it on there. And it looks like a hot mess. It seriously does. But I was able to clean up the embossing. Now, what this technique does is it traps the color that's underneath under the clear embossing. So you see the white paper, you see the splatters that she put on there, and you see this beautiful medallion that she painted, which is really cool. I'm cleaning everything up. That black ink will get everywhere. So then I took my damp rag from cleaning up and I just kind of rubbed it over each of the embossed areas. It just helps clean up more of that ink and really makes the white pop that's underneath. I think it's cool, actually. I don't think it's a bad background. I think it's neat. The part that I struggled with is there was a sentiment in the center. And first I took a fine line pen and I tried to write inside the sentiment. It was like the black ink would not stay in there. So I was struggling with it. Now I've used this stamp before and I stamped it with some dye ink and it was beautiful, nice and crisp. But this time it did not work out that way. So that fine liner was too hard to read. So I got my black glaze pen out and I went over it and that was fine. I could read it now. But it just seemed like it needed something else. And I had tried, you see up in the corner, I had tried heat embossing this sentiment in white and then like trimming it apart, and I was going to layer it over, but it covered up too much of the medallion, which is what I wanted to showcase. So I didn't particularly care for that. So then I moved on to the black glaze pen. Then I liked how the black glaze pen was glossy and the background was kind of matte. So then I filled in some of these circles with this glaze pen. And you can do more than just add eyes and noses to critters with a glaze pen. Like, this is really pretty. So I filled a few of those in. And then I felt like it still needed something else. And this part of the video is where I would normally edit out a bunch of this fumbling around, but it would not let me cut this out. So while I'm adding more and more to this panel, I want to talk about Amanda's channel. Now, Amanda is the creator at Rise and Procraftinate. She has some really good videos. I don't understand like all the ins and outs of the Cricut, the new Cricut. I still have the old one with the cartridge. She's got like the new one that you hook to the computer and you do the stuff in the programs. I don't understand that stuff. She does, and she explains it very, very well. She also has a few videos on her channel that have to do with the foiling, using foiling with those machines, which is something that I don't understand. I am a hands-on, get dirty kind of card maker. She does all this really cool stuff. She also has a few videos about the like how to make light up cards. I am so intimidated by that stuff. She is not. So, and she teaches it very, very well. So I would really recommend you go over to her channel and poke around. I mean, any one of her videos is going to be a gain for you. You're going to learn something from every single one of them. I will have, like I said, the birthday card video linked below. She did that ink trap technique with her grandpa's video, uh, or with her grandpa's card. But I mean, I learned something every single time I watch her videos, and I have been making cards for a very long time. So that's something to be said about watching something that isn't particularly your style. You might pick something super cool up. So here I had waited till all of this was dry, and I trimmed my panel down. You don't want to trim that down while the Nuvo drops are wet because, well, that will just make a super huge mess. And then I just layered that with a piece of blue cardstock from my stash. It probably came from Michael's or Hobby Lobby or somewhere like that. Joann's maybe. And then I still wasn't sold on this being like finished. I mean, I was like, well, here's the cards I made. But then I decided that this card that got so much still needed more. So I pulled some blue sequins out of my stash. These are sequins from the Dollar Tree. So, yeah, I've had them a while, but they were the right color blue. So I just added a few around the center, and there is that finished card. So, like I said, it's not my style, but I did not throw it away. It's just paper. Now here is the secret recipe to my backgrounds that I made and I sent her. This is a Gina Marie Dyes stencil, and I did have that up on the screen, and some deco foil gel, transfer gel. This is the first time I used this stuff. It's so cool. I can definitely see myself using it more often. But I wanted to send her 3 very different backgrounds, things that I would use, but things that maybe she wouldn't. I know she does a lot of foiling too, but most of her foiling is like with her Cricut and stuff, or with a Zig 2-way pen, things like that. So I thought she would get a real kick out of this. I do know that she has the capability of doing this, so this isn't something she couldn't do. It's just something she probably wouldn't do on a regular basis. So that gel, I did that one first because that needed to sit and dry for like an hour. Then this is my Simon Says Stamp Diamond Pattern 6x6. Amanda does not do a lot of masculine cards, so I live in a house with mostly boys, so I have to make the masculine cards. So I decided to make a like diamond plate background for her. Here I wanted to show, look at all them handprints on there, and I barely touched it. And I used a gunmetal embossing powder from Ranger and my Versamark on this 6x6 stamp. I just left it turned face up on my mat there, and then brought my paper to it and rubbed it really well, making sure that I got all of the areas. And then using a coffee filter, I poured my embossing powder on the background and then tapped off what, didn't need to be all over my desk. I poured in the thing. It didn't do too bad, but I did use my little cloth there to clean up what was left over. And then I had been heating up my heat gun off screen here, and I just melted it. Now I tested this paper at Christmas time. It does heat emboss well, but I would still be careful because it did warp pretty good, and that heat gun was heating up for quite a while, probably before I started even doing the gel on the last background. It was sitting there making all sorts of noise. So those are 2 of the backgrounds, and then the third one here, I thought I would do a layered background for her. Now this mat that I have that I work on, it's a 2-sided mat. One side is like a self-healing side and the other side is the piercing side. So I used that to get all the little pieces outside of this die. And this is a 3 layers die by Birch Press. It's pretty pricey. I happened to pick it up in an exceptional deal. But it layers together like this. I sent it to her not layered, just all 3 pieces, because I wasn't sure if she would want to add color or anything to it, or just use one or whatever. So I did it that way. So here I pulled out that deco foil shattered glass rainbow. What is this stuff called? Rainbow shattered glass deco foil. And I just used my transfer sheet here. I think it's just a piece of like butcher paper. It's probably what it is, and it's folded a couple of times. And I run my stuff through my laminator, and this is just the Amazon Basics cheapest laminator I could find. Laminator, and I run it through a couple of times, and I flipped it over when I ran it through the second time, so it was like upside down, and here's the third time. And then I took everything off my desk. You can see that it's stuck to all that just fine. And then I made sure it was kind of cooled down so that it wasn't warm to the touch before I peel it off. And there it is. So not only is it shiny and beautiful, but it's super textural too. So those are the 3 backgrounds that I sent to her, and you'll have to click on her channel to see what she made with those. So I appreciate you stopping by. Here are some still shots of my cards, and I want you to tell Amanda that she did an excellent job. Tell me how terrible my black card is, because it is not my favorite. I did finish it like a champ. Thank you for stopping by. As always, I appreciate you and give cards generously. Bye.